can you explain to general public just like what that final mile means and why it's so challenging?
Yeah, you know, when I guess there's two analogies to use to talk about the importance of final mile in any supply chain. The first analogy I'll use it would be to kind of compare cost. So let's say it cost you $100 to ship a widget from origin to destination, whether it's manufactured in Germany or China or wherever. Let's say it costs you $100 to get it from manufacturing facility overseas to your customers into your customers' hands. You know, typically about $80 of that $100 would be around the last mile. Like it can be as high as 80% of your total transportation cost, but usually it's maybe more around 60 to 70%. But still, a majority of your cost is going to revolve around the last mile. So it's a big cost element. That's why when parcel rates were going up so much because of these peak season surcharges that were being applied by the integrators, the FedExes, the UPSs of the world. That's why it was having such a big impact because, it's already a big piece of the overall pie, and now it's getting even bigger. So that's one analogy I can use is just think about it in the context of, importing is not that expensive. Storing it and fulfilling is not that expensive. It's really the last mile. Then if you look at it from, let's say another analogy is before e-commerce, everyone was in the home delivery business. You just didn't know it because you would go to the store, you drive there, you take the train, you pick up your items, you bring them home yourself. Like that's what we did all the time. And now, so that, if you think about a pipe, or an artery, right? Like that's like an artery that where blood flows, pretty easily because arteries are big, and that's where you can get a lot of stuff efficiently shipped in an artery, one big pipe. Once you start, instead of delivering just to one store, now you're delivering to 1,000 customers. So think of how many more miles have to be driven in order to deliver to 1,000 customers' homes, where before it was just delivered to one store. So that's what's adding all that extra cost and capacity. And so when you think about the last mile for the logistics of PPE or the logistics of the vaccine, even though we're not delivering PPE to every home, the idea that, think of however many clinics and nonprofits and hospitals and everything else that exists in any major metro area, and the replenishment, they need to be resupplied because it's not like you have big warehouses attached to hospitals either, and especially outpatient clinics, long-term care facilities, et cetera. So they need to be replenished over and over and over again. And of course, then with the vaccine, you have the additional challenges of, not all these places have the right freezers to be able to store the vaccines either. So that's where you get into, instead of a one-to-one relationship on a shipment, now you have a one-to-many. And that's where you add a lot of complexity and cost, and coordination is required in order to really execute against that. So this whole, all the news about the vaccine logistics, and you saw the first airplane flying into O'Hare was a United flight that brought in the first vaccine from Belgium. All that stuff was planned months and months in advance, and it was all coordinated like an orchestra, and it all looked really cool because it was a one-to-one. It was just the artery piece of the supply chain, which is not easy because, we're talking about shipping vaccines thousands of miles that all need to be temperature controlled, but it's less complex than actually, okay, what happens now? We're in the state of Illinois, we're in the state of New York. Now you got to coordinate with all the county health departments. Now you got to, whether it was PPE or whether it's now with the vaccines, the last mile is always the most challenging, the most costly, and the most complex.